Thank you to Calvin Risk for the invitation to speak with you, and I'm apologizing for not being able to be with you in real time, but I hope nevertheless that this will prove useful. My name is Dan. I work in the European Parliament for Dragoș Tudorache, one of the two co-rapporteurs of the AI Act. And I have a very daunting task to talk to you in 5 to 10 minutes about a piece of legislation that took 3 years to negotiate and is around 400 and some pages long. But I'll try to distill that so that it's useful. And I will start with the assumption that most of the people listening in know what the AI Act is and the basics of it, so I won't spend too much time on that, but rather look a little bit to the future and see what's next. So, in brief, the AI Act regulates, in principle, AI systems that are considered to be high risk, that is, those who pose significant risk to health, safety, and fundamental rights. And the way it regulates these is that it takes a product safety approach, and those systems that are deemed to be high risk need to undergo a conformity assessment before being placed on the EU market. Now, these systems are in a discrete list in an annex in the AI Act and deal with the use cases that have most impact on health, safety, and fundamental rights. So it is biometrics, it's critical infrastructure, education, employment, law enforcement, democratic processes, administration of justice. The bulk of the regulation applies to the high-risk AI systems. Of course, there are, in a pyramid of risk, there are several other categories. First, at the very top, some prohibited practices that are in direct contravention with our European values, and this is basically what we don't want in Europe. We don't want AI to be used in such a way, for example, social scoring on a mass scale that leads to differentiated treatment towards citizens. Then the high-risk category is the bulk of the regulation, and then a number of systems that require transparency, such as those systems who produce deepfakes or generate artificial content. And then finally, most of the AI systems out there are in the low-risk category and have no obligations under the AI Act. What happened in the process of negotiating for such a long time, a file so big, is that we lawmakers realize that there is another category of AI that needs to be caught in this regulation, and that is very powerful AI systems that are, in a sense, general purpose. But instead of regulating the systems, we set out a more flexible enforcement type of structure wherein the providers of AI models, of powerful AI models, interact with a newly established structure at the European level, the AI office, and continuously and together make sure that those systems are compliant. That is also keeping in with the risk-based approach that we had for the high-risk AI systems and the other ones that I just mentioned, only applied to big, powerful models. So that, in a sense, is the gist of the regulation per se. And for most of the systems, what they will need to do to be able to be put on the European market is they will have to undergo a conformity assessment, which is a self-assessment with a few exceptions that deal with biometrics. And that conformity assessment is a traditional one. That is, it is about having a risk management system in place. It is about having good data governance in place. It's about transparency. It's about keeping documentation, technical documentation on the system. It's about ensuring that the system is secure, and that, based on these requirements, there's not that many ways to regulate or to make sure that AI is safe based on these requirements. Once you check those, then you can put the AI on the market. Now, I think what would be interesting is to also look ahead, because with the adoption of the legislation, not everything is done. In trying to future-proof this legislation, we left on purpose a number of moving parts that will still have to be refined in the months and years to come. But let me start with the timeline. So the timeline is that as soon as the AI Act is published in the official journal of the European Union, and that should be within the next few weeks, the clock starts ticking first for the prohibitions, which will apply 6 months from now. Then, because of the scale and the impact of the very powerful AI models, which could present systemic risks, the provisions on general purpose AI models and the AI office will apply within 12 months. Most of the AI systems that are meant to be regulated by the AI Act, the high-risk AI systems, will have 24 months to comply. And then finally, there are a number of AI that are embedded in products that are already regulated, such as medical devices, and for those, the AI Act will apply within 36 months. Another thing that needs to happen is that the Commission was tasked to issue guidelines on many of the provisions in the AI Act that deal with clarifications such as, for example, when exactly is a system considered high risk if it's in one or another category, and on multiple other parts of the implementation. So those Commission guidelines will need to come out in the months and years to come and be ready in time for when the Act comes into application for the different categories of system. For general purpose AI models, which is an important category, the way compliance will work is that the Commission, together with the providers of those models, are tasked to develop a code of practice. That code of practice will make more concrete some of the obligations that we've put into the AI Act, and once endorsed by the Commission, those following those codes of practice will lead to a presumption of conformity. Of course, at the same time, member states need to designate their national supervisory authority who will be in charge of monitoring and enforcing the rules on high-risk AI systems, and that needs to happen, of course, within the next 2 years so that they can enforce the Act. And then finally, maybe I would go out of the technical area and think a little bit to the future. I think what needs to happen now that the EU has this horizontal EU-wide regulation on artificial intelligence, what needs to happen is the EU will probably and most likely, and I think it's a very good thing, will intensify its efforts to work internationally to align and to make sure that there is a policy interoperability first with our allies and with those who are thinking in the same way about AI, but then even more so in international fora. So I know this was just a brief overview. I hope it was useful, and I'm sure that the colleagues at Calvin Risk will get into the nitty-gritty of the regulation. Thank you once again for having me, and hope you have a wonderful event.